Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and this is Entrepreneurship 101, inspiring entrepreneurs to rise, innovate, and create lasting impact. And today I have my special guest, clinical psychologist and group practitioner owner, the founder, as the founder as well. Telehealth group practice based in Arizona, other than Dr. Bryan Gastelle.
Thank you.
Welcome once again, Dr. Bryan, to one of my podcasts. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Of course. So I am a clinical psychologist. I am the founder of Empower Psychotherapy, which is we're about 25 providers in as far as like therapists, and then we've got some med management team as well. I specialize in treatment of neurodivergence, evidence-based care, and depression and anxiety.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Bryan. Thank you. You founded Empower Psychotherapy with a name that clearly signals your approach. What does empowerment mean to you in the context of therapy, and how is it different from simply providing support or advice?
I love that question. Yeah, empower does have a meaning behind it. And it's what I think of when I think of good care. So when people are looking for care, sometimes they will be navigating a system that they don't quite understand or don't have the tools to get through it. And so empower is all about making therapy simple, effective, and easy to navigate.
Easy to navigate. Very well said, Dr. Bryan. You've stated that your goal is to take guesswork out of a treatment that give the power back to my clients. What does the therapeutic process you typically look like to when power is not the client's hands, and how do you consciously shift that dynamic?
Yeah, so we want to give our clients the tools they need to navigate the entire treatment process and not just therapy. So we have internal management staff. We have, handpicked group of therapists that are based on their ability and their understanding of evidence-based practice or, what is shown to work. Um, and so we want that therapy to be effective and transparent too. So we want the client to know exactly where they are and where we want them to be in therapy.
You've built a fully remote group practice serving clients across multiple states. What drove that decision, and what have you learned about the unique ways empowerment can or cannot happen through a screen?
Yeah, so telehealth is a relatively new delivery method of therapy, and there are pros and cons to it. Telehealth is effective at reaching folks that don't have a lot of access to care, and so that's one big advantage of it. Another is that there's zero commute, so it's very convenient for people and meets them where they're at. One drawback of it is that in-person therapy sometimes can be more effective at getting people out, and especially those that need to get moving. But it is a valuable tool in the tool set for folks looking for care.
You've mentioned wanting to make therapy more visible so people know what they're getting before they sign on. Why do you think therapy remains so opaque to the average person, and what happens when clients walk in a clear expectations?
I've just definitely noticed that there is confusion around therapy, a lot of mystique, and if you ask the average person what they think therapy is, you'll get all different types of answers. And I think that's, it's just because of some of this stuff is pretty complicated and it's hard to explain and break down. However, I think that it is possible to say to break it down in terms of like objectives and points that you want to reach. So we try to empower our clients by telling them, okay, this is where we're going to take you with meds. This is where we're going to take you with therapy, and this is why, and try to make that as simple as possible.
Simple, simple, but easy to do for sure. You specialize in ADHD,
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, trauma, and relationship issue. Condition that often overlap and interact. When a client present a multiple challenges, how do you and your team determine where to start?
That's a great question. So, a lot of times there's challenges that are at the cornerstone of these problems, and then there are challenges that branch out. And so, you want to look for those cornerstone challenges. There may be more than one, but let's say that somebody is anxious, but they also have ADHD and they're going to grad school, right? So the anxiety might be coming from the ADHD and the executive functioning issues during their academic career. And so we would want to get to the root cause and go after that first.
Interesting, Dr. Brian. You've trained in CBT, DBT, ACT, and Gottman method. For someone unfamiliar with these modalities, how would you describe with each one of the best suited for, and how do you decide which tool you use for each client?
Yeah. So cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is kind of the gold standard treatment. It's used for a lot of different things like depression, anxiety, um, even ADHD. So it's a multi tool and it's used quite often. I'm also trained in DBT, which is all about emotion regulation and giving tools for that. So if somebody's problem centers around emotion regulation, then I might do some more DBT style interventions. As far as the couples modalities go, EFT and Gottman, I think, are very complementary of each other. So EFT, I think, helps people get to the bottom of these negative cycles that they get caught in their relationship. A lot of times there's miscommunication, and that's actually a big overlap with Gottman, which is very much about communication and building positivity between the couple. So I actually think that those two mesh well together and use them in tandem a lot.
Very well said, Dr. Brian. You have extensive experience with ADHD in particular. How does ADHD differ from ways it's often portrayed in a popular culture? And what's the truly effective empowering treatment look like for adults with ADHD?
Yeah, so ADHD is stereotyped as often like we think of the hyperactive kid in grade school that is also the class clown when we think of ADHD, and that's just this that's the stereotype. But what it really is it actually a lifelong thing that can take a lot of different forms. So you can have the hyperactive component, which is more of that stereotype I just explained. You can have the inattentive part of it, which is more just daydreaming, trouble focusing, losing things, forgetfulness. And then you can have both at the same time. And so a lot of times adults will come in, and the quickest way we empower them is by giving them a clear diagnosis and explaining what to do next. So with ADHD, it's typically seen as meds are the first line. You want to make sure that the meds are set up. And then after that, the therapy is all about strategies to harness the strengths of ADHD and step around the weaknesses.
You offer a Gatman method, couples therapy alongside your individual work. When couple comes to you feeling stuck, what is the first thing you help them understand about their dynamic that they're likely missing, Dr. Brian?
Yeah, so a lot of times we project different emotions than we actually feel. So I help them understand that. A lot of times I'll run into couples where maybe the outward emotion is anger or frustration, and the inward emotion is fear of losing the other person. And so when they're projecting that outward anger, it's because it's more socially acceptable or it's what they've learned to do or whatever, and it's just not landing the way that they want it to with their partner, and it's causing all these problems and miscommunications. So actually the first thing I do is a little quick worksheet to help break that down for people. You want to look at the attachment style too, whether they're avoidant, anxious, secure, and help them understand that too. So really breaking down the pattern in a nutshell would be the answer there.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting, Dr. Brian. You founded Empower Psychotherapy as a group practice with multiple therapies, each bringing their own specialties and approaches. What was your vision in building a team rather than participating solo, and how do you secure cohesive care across different clinicians?
So I think at first, what made me want to go into group practice was I actually just had more clients than I could even see, and so I knew a couple of therapists that I had a lot of respect for, and so I reached out and I built the team. I started with five, and it really grew from there. And at this point, at this level, the way I maintain that standard of care is by carefully choosing upper management and managers. So I pick managers that very much align with the way that I would want care to be delivered. Then I explain that method to them. And then I let them do some hiring so that these new hires reflect the mission that I'm trying to, you know, execute.
Very well said. Dr. Brian, your team includes therapies specializing in trauma, EMDR, eating disorders, faith based counseling, expressive arts therapy, and medication management. How do you think about matching clients with the right therapies, and when is the right time to bring medication as a part of treatment plan?
Yeah. So I would encourage anybody thinking about therapy to consider having a consultation before beginning. If you're not sure what kind of therapist you need, I'd be happy to help you figure that out. A lot of people do come in with their choice already made, so they'll book with a specific therapist. But like I said, I would encourage letting a therapist figure that out for you. And if not, if you want to do your own homework, then we do have a full like meet the team, and everyone's got a block of explanation there. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so I would say let us help you choose. And if you do have a specific preference, you can learn about them that way as well.
Certainly. You practice fully remotely across multiple states. What are the biggest misconceptions people have about telehealth therapy? What has to surprise you most about its effectiveness or its limitations?
I think what I would say the most notable thing is how effective it can really be. Like there was a lot of skepticism when it first, came out as a new thing, and as time has gone by, people are starting to see that the effects are essentially the same. That you can do just as well with telehealth as you can with in person. And there's pros and cons, of course, and those should go into the decision. But I think what surprised me is just how effective it really is, and just the ease of use that goes along with it.
Certainly, the ease for sure. As a both clinician and a practice owner, how do you support your team of therapies to prevent burnout and maintain the quality of care? What does it empowerment look like when it's dedicated at your clinicians, not just your clients?
Love that question too. And we try to make it go both ways. So the way that we empower our clinicians is that we are very limited in the amount of management for their schedule that we apply, even for employees. And so we essentially let clinicians determine how often they want to work, and we will, give them reimbursement that way. We do have, of course, like certain expectations in certain scenarios, but one way we empower it is just give clinicians is give them full control of their own schedule. Another one is that telehealth does lend itself to flexibility as well. So it helps maintain that work life balance. And the third is that we try to take as much of the back end work off of the clinician's plate as possible. So we do a lot of scheduling, we do, most of the marketing, things like that. So we give all kinds of services to keep the clinicians basically doing therapy and documentation.
Very well said. Dr. Brian, very well said indeed. You work with the clients experiencing trauma, anxiety, depressions, and relationship struggles. In your experience, what is the single most common factor that keeps people stuck? The thing that, once addressed, creates the most momentum.
There are quite a few, but if I were to pick one factor, I would say that it is the body and mind connection. So I think one thing that even draws different diagnoses together is that when you take care of your body, you take care of your mind in a way. So a lot of, like, when exercise and self-care and diet and sleep go by the wayside, then a lot of times mental health is quick to follow. So if I were to give one blanket factor that is probably the biggest, it would probably be that.
Hmm. Interesting. Dr. Brian, you've mentioned using cognitive processing therapy for trauma.
Mhm.
How does trauma get stuck in the mind and body, and what does the process of unsticking it actually feel like for a client?
Yeah, so trauma is a fight or flight. It's caused by a fight or flight experience that the mind has trouble encoding a memory. So we have this memory that is poorly encoded and in a way like separated from the rest of the body. And so what the treatment is a lot of times there's a link between the emotion that the person feels and the event that caused the emotion. So if we're going to just, I'll say, like, war veterans or something might be triggered by loud noises, and the reason is that if we look back, there was a loud noise associated with extreme fear. So, what I would do is have them tell me the narrative behind that trigger. So, like, this actual story of how that came about. And then what we'll do is we'll wait till their anxiety spikes, because it often does if it's a trigger. And then I will walk it down slowly with pace breathing or other methods like grounding. And so the body learns that this memory is equivalent to lower anxiety, and that heals the trauma symptoms.
You work with the clients on the autism spectrum as well as those with ADHD. How does a neurodivergent clients experience the world differently in ways that traditional therapy might miss? How do you adapt your approach accordingly?
Yeah, so folks with autism or on the spectrum have different needs than neurotypical folks. So the traditional therapy might focus on social connection. There's nuances there. Folks on the spectrum might need social connection, but have a different way of going about it, or a different threshold that's comfortable for them. Another one would be traditional therapy might try to modify thoughts and in a way that's very tailored towards neurotypical folks. And it's important to understand the way that someone with ASD processes things, and how, to what extent that disorder influences it, so that you can deliver therapy in a more effective way that way as well.
Hmm. Dr. Brian, you treat OCD and the panic disorders, isn't it? For
Mhm.
someone living with those conditions, the feeling of being stuck is often intense and physical. What is the first step in helping them realize that movement is possible?
Yeah. So if someone struggles with panic disorder or some type of chronic anxiety, the first way that I like to empower them really is to teach them in the moment interventions. So I'll do some paced breathing, which is 5 seconds in, seven out, focusing on the air going in and out. And essentially, that allows a degree of control. A lot of times, if somebody does that for about 2 minutes, their anxiety drops. And so once you give that first tool, you see a light bulb for the clients, and they get excited about therapy and they can do some of the harder, more complicated stuff. So I always start with the quick acting tools with anxiety.
You've built your practice around the idea that clients should leave therapy feeling empowered and educated. What does empowered client like 6 months after treatment? How's their relationship to themselves different?
I would say if all goes well after 6 months, the empowered client will understand what they need to do, be on a direct path, if not already down that path in terms of recovery. If they need medications, they will be aware of that, and they will be aware of the bigger picture as well.
Mm. Your team includes therapies with diverse modalities: EMDR, brain spottings, expressive arts, yoga informed care. What's your philosophy on integrating these different approaches? And when it is the time for a client, try something outside traditional talk therapy.
Yeah. So my philosophy is that it is good to have therapists with different backgrounds so that they can cover the needs of different clients. And a lot of times clients come in and they don't actually, know what's going to work for them. So I like therapists. I tend to hire therapists that can explain the modality that they're going to use and that they're proficient in a number of modalities. So yeah, and really what you get there is flexibility for the client. So if a client comes in and maybe that therapist is a EMDR specialist, but that client needs CBT, then that therapist can pivot to that, or at least have a team member that could.
Mm. Beautifully articulated, Dr. Brian. So, to wrap up our discussion for today, if a listener takes away only one principle from this conversation, one fundamental truth about therapy, healing, or empowerment, what would you want to be based on everything you've learned as a clinician and founder?
If I were going to give away one truth, I think as a founder, I would say never give up. Believe in yourself. You can do this. There's a lot of times, especially as a founder, where you get imposter syndrome. You're like, is this really something I can do? And I just say, go for it. Trust yourself. And I think from a more clinical side, remember that mind-body connection. If you're struggling with mental health, the first step I would suggest is book a therapist. The second step is look at your health habits, and that therapist will most likely help you do that as well.
Yes, indeed. And Dr. Brian, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with the world. Can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Of course. So, folks in several states can actually book therapy with Empower at www.empowermytherapy.com. If we don't cover your state yet, we still have great information on the modalities that are most effective for different types of, mental health concerns. So feel free to check us out there. And if you're not sure which direction to go or you want help, just click book a free consultation and I'll be happy to help you.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Dr. Bryan Gastelle, because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering therapies will rise. So, Dr. Bryan, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Monica, people, see you soon.